from where Ruben Impimachi Avirango and the team of Good Morning Uganda left it. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka on another very lovely day. It is the 17th of this month of August in this year 2021. Another lovely Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us here on UBC TV today. Now we're getting back slowly to normal life, even with COVID-19. Now Kampala is open and well, city is busy. There's traffic jam and all the things. But remember, COVID is still residing with us. Now let's do what we can do to ensure that we put on our masks. Let's sanitize, wash our hands with soap, and clean running water as we also struggle to fight the pandemic. Now, for those of you who can find a job or your second job whenever and wherever, you can access it because it's one of the proven ways. If we all get vaccinated, that's the only way that we'll be able to get back to a normal life like it is happening elsewhere in the world where the populations are being vaccinated. But away from the COVID talk now, welcome to GMU Extra today. My name is Jagen, and of course joining me in studios this morning is Mr. Hatwib Mogasa, the Executive Director of NITA Uganda, to talk about e-government and how much we think this is doing too. Scale it up. You're very welcome, Mr. Hatwib Mogasa.
Thank you, Mr. Semakola.
Thank you so much. Happy to have you this morning in studios. And I know you're managing slowly by slowly, especially with COVID-19 at a personal level.
Yes, that's
How has it been with you?
It has been hard. It has been a learning curve, but there's some successes, some achievements that we have managed to achieve at this time, and we hope to do better from what we have learned.
Okay. NITA. Now, we have NITA on our minds, on our tongues, on our talks every other time. We don't normally talk about NITA so much. Yes. Tell us about NITA, what NITA is, your mandate, and what you need to do for people to keep singing NITA like we possibly sing NIRA. Yes.
Thank you, Semakola, Mr. Semakola. Yes, NITA, the National IT Authority of Uganda, is mandated with the task of coordinating, monitoring, and promoting the development of ICT in Uganda. That's our core mandate. It's a function under the means of ICT. It was formed through the Parliamentary Act of 2009, and we have been operational for now close to 11 years. Initially, the authority was tasked with developing infrastructure backbone for Uganda. That's a national backbone infrastructure. This fiber optic cable that connects all major districts and towns to a central point.
Is that what it used to be before? NBI, or NBI is another product?
NBI is a same product. It is an initial task that was given to NITA to first connect the districts.
So NBI is your project?
Yes, it is our project. We started with, it started from the ministry, then came to NITA when NITA was formed. So at the ministry, we did phase 1 and phase 2. Then NITA took it up from there to phase 3, phase 4. There's a missing link, last mile, and now we're going to phase 5. So we have covered close to 50 districts in Uganda and major towns. We have about 4,000 kilometers plus of fiber optic cable, and we have close to now, we have connected 1,350 MDAs to this backbone. So that's the current state. And
what were you before you became NITA? What was it in Uganda before it became NITA?
Before it became NITA, it was the Ministry of ICT, and that was their task. It was the Ministry of ICT. There was no authority that was managing the NBI. And also looking at the way technology is going, there's a lot of functions that cannot be left to just one ministry. There is cyber security, there are regulations, there's e-government, infrastructure. Now data protection and privacy office also has come up. So there are a lot of multiple components within this ICT sector that cannot just be under one authority.
Are you the only ones building fiber optics, or the other private players like maybe telecom companies, MTN, Airtel and the others are also doing the same thing, providing this infrastructure for their services to the people?
We are an enabler for these services. So we're not the only ones. We enable also the private sector. We develop for government, but also enable private sector to connect to or to use this fiber optic cable that we are rolling out. So it's not just only for government, but also for the private sector. There are internet service providers that connect to this fiber optic cable to provide services to the citizens. As NITA, our mandate is to provide services to government MDAs. So as we provide the services to government MDAs, the citizens also should benefit from this service, so they are benefiting it from that collaboration with the private ISPs.
Well, that's very important. Now, we talk about e-government, and I think this is where we tend to be moving. Now we see procurement has moved to E, we see government communications is moving to E, and quite a number of those. How prepared are we for that particular transformation, or that particular migration from the analog system to where how much are we doing, and how prepared are we specifically for that particular e-setting in everything that we do as a country?
Yes. In terms of readiness, we are ranked one of the highest or the most ready country in Africa in terms of e-governance. The World Bank ranking, I tend to forget, but I think 152 out of their points that have assigned. But with that ranking, we were ranked one of the best e-government ready country in East Africa and also in Africa. This has been through our effort in planning. We planned the e-government rollout in the way that you look at a computer or an IT service. There's hardware components, there are software components, and then there are policies. So when we're planning, we say, let's have an infrastructure that represents the hardware. Let's have an e-government structure or e-government regulations that represent the software. And then there are regulations, now the cyber laws, the computer laws, all those are policies that will support both the hardware and software component. So with those three components, we're able to achieve our mandate and readiness ranking that we were ranked at.
Okay. Well, now that we're moving into E, when you look at our third national development plan, NDP3, I think it's a whole chapter 14 of that talks about digital transformation. I want to see how pivotal you are in this whole transformation, because where we're going, and when you look at the setting, when you read that into chapter of chapter 14 of third national development plan that talks about digital transformation, there's a lot that is expected from you, and we just need to know where NITA actually is to see that this comes in now. It should help us understand how shall we curb the other things like excesses, corruption, and quite a number of things. How is this going to help us? Because when we talk about E, many people simply think internet, and I'm just talking to one another, maybe by internet. What are the solutions that we're providing to help us transform and achieve our Vision 2040?
Yes. For the digital transformation initiative in the NDP3, NITA is dedicated to connect all districts in Uganda. At the moment, we are connected to 50 districts, but we plan to expand on this connection to all the 134 districts in Uganda. Now that will extend the e-services to all the citizens. We should not only focus on the connected districts. Services should reach to all citizens of the of Uganda. Secondly, we are transforming the e-government solutions. We are reviewing and transforming all services in government into e-government solutions. One of them is the e-procurement. It's an end-to-end, fully digitized procurement process.
The
so
EGP.
EGP, yes, under the PPDA authority and the Ministry of Finance. So someone who is going to interact with the system can do it from anywhere of his convenience. We don't have to come to the offices all the way till contracting. Other systems that are under review are we are with NIRA we're saying how can we enable citizens access their national ID digitally, and also how can we improve on this digital, or how can we improve this ID to be a digital ID? When you apply for your ID, you are asked for information that is very critical to you as a citizen. But how do you utilize that information, or how do you utilize this ID for the government services? So we're working and working together with NIRA to ensure that the digital ID is a functional ID, not just a card, a plastic card, but it's a functional ID. And also it can be in other forms. It can be a digital form, so you can even have it on your phone. You don't have to always rely on that plastic.
An ID.
Exactly. So those are the different initiatives that we are working on with the other MDAs. Yes.
Okay. When we look at the other countries where they've managed to scale up their digitalization, whatever that is their e-governance, it helps them on quite a number of exercises. For example, in the Ministry of Health, we have a lot of problems with drug theft. Is there a way that NITA-U intends to help government to even actually just manage that? Can we curtail or help manage the drug thefts in our facilities using E? Or we can only procure by E, but then again, let it go to West in a way?
No, that should not be the case. We have been working with the NMS, and tomorrow we are moving with them. We have been moving together with NMS to see that their services are fully digitized to the last end user. So when they are procured, that process has been digitized and completed. But when they are being dispatched to the last end user, we need to also ensure that it is fully digitized. But how do we do that? The last end user is me and you. How do I complete that process? If I'm receiving that drug, why don't I receive it with, well, why don't I register with my ID to ensure that I've received the drug? No one can have my or duplicate my ID. So those are some of the proposals that we're working on. If I last end user, and these are the patients, when they come to receive the drug, they must receive it with their ID, and it will record and ensure that this is Hatwi Mogasa who has received the medicine, and it will be submitted to NMS, and all those records will be available.
You're moving into that direction?
Yes, we are.
What does that save us?
That saves us the challenges of corruption, drugs being dispatched but never delivered to the citizen, accountability, planning to know that if in, let's say, Rakai, the required drug, a hospital in Rakai, the required drug is for malaria, then we can plan better and say that let's provide enough procurement for malaria for this region, rather than dispatching anyhow. So NMS has been very instrumental in this task, and tomorrow we are moving with them again and ensuring that we complete that process digitally.
Some other thing that maybe people need to understand is what we mean when we talk about e-government, e-communication, e-everything. What is this e?
Yes, yes. That is a very confusing, very complex topic to understand. But E is electronic, but should not be thrown anyhow. You should not just say E everything. No, it is electronic, digitally, and automated. So you digitize and you automate, then you fully get the benefits of an e-service, an e-government service. Digitizing is transforming a manual information into a digital information. But then you add on the automated component. That's now getting that information that is digital to be processed. Instead of someone doing authorization or processing it manually, the system should be able to handle that process automatically and not manually. You can have it as a hybrid process, but the best option is a fully automated digital process. So that's an service.
Everything, of course, comes with its own challenges and disadvantages. And to many people, they actually think when we digitalize everything and when we process into now the electronic bit of it, won't that also cause unemployment to us, because we're struggling to get jobs, but yet again, the e-processes are solving many things. They're replacing the human resource. Won't that also be a problem to us, where Mr. Mugasa will not need so many semacolas? One semacola, you can automate the system, it will actually do work that 10 semacolas would be doing manually. Won't that also be a problem to us in the future?
It's a trade-off to, if you want to develop, do you want to keep the economy busy working on monotonous activities, or free them up for better activities, more progressive activities? So it will free up the worker to focus on the most critical activities that would be developmental. If you are, I'll give an example of, I believe this was from, borrow from, I forget his name, he's the bishop, I can't remember. From the western region, I think it was
not Pachenga?
Pachenga?
One of the bishops from western Uganda.
Yes, western Uganda.
Not Zach Niringie.
Sorry?
Not Zach Niringie.
I forget his name.
Okay.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
He said that in his the earlier days they used to fetch water, and they felt it was a very prestige activity, or very you are doing a good service by going to the well to fetch water. But now there are taps. Now there are people who used to fetch water who felt like this was my job. This is, and
to
when
go
the
fetch
taps
water for the others in the community.
Exactly.
But now the water is in the compound.
The water is in the compound.
It is in the house.
So they felt like now this tap is going to take away my job. But you look at what the development has, the tap has brought development to the community, and it has freed up people from the monotonous manual tasks to do other things that are very developmental. So this is what IT does. It frees you up for from the very manual routine task. And then you are now able to do more developmental functions. Yes.
Okay. The other thing, Mr. Mugasa, which I think also needs to be addressed, is data itself. Where do we get our data? How cheap is data? Because we talk about this transformation now. When you talk data, the everyday users, the mwananchi of Uganda, will think about data that they use on their phones to get social media, to talk, to chat, to do all the things. But for a service to be provided by NITA Uganda, by the Minister of Finance, by any other person, there's data that is needed. Do we make our own data? Do we procure this data? Do we get it from somewhere? Where do we get it? How cheap is it? And what is the way forward? Because people think it's simply just getting to your phone and go to MTN and say, I'm buying so much data for this month, or Airtel, I'm buying so much for today. But where does the data come from? Who gives us data? Where do we procure the data? Or we make it ourselves?
Yes, data or broadband is procured from the undersea cable. We procure as government from undersea cable, and this data is procured as a whole, like a wholesale, we procure a whole pipe of data, but then we break it down to distribute to the end user. So what the end user receives is a component of what has been procured from the undersea cable. That is one way that you can see, or that you will look at data. Data has two forms. There's the international transit data. This is data that is coming from, or you are going to use it to access, and it can be local or international sites. That is the most common data that is provided. And for telecoms, they will always provide you that international data as an end user. But then there's local data. That is data that is going to be, if let's say UBC has an office in Soroti and they want to connect to their office, they don't have to procure that international data. You are getting a direct link to your office. So we provide you what they call a dark fiber. So that dark fiber is it's a better type of data because it's a direct link, but it's only specific to local point-to-point connections. So the point-to-point connections, the data that in that form is specifically for organizations, big organizations that are going to share a lot of data. You can't rely on the 5G, 4G or that type of international data structure. Yeah.
But where do we get ours, for example? Because I just don't know how to ask this, but I just want to know, because yes, we understand internet. Yes. We understand the connectivity. You talked about NBI, the infrastructure for that particular broadband. You know, but what is this data and where do we get it?
Yes. Now, let me use an analogy of a tap. Let's take this fiber optic cable to be a tap. Now, when you are accessing or when you're procuring international data, they tell you we are going to open up this tap of data of this size. So you can say, I want 10 GB data. So they will open up a tap worth or the size of 10 GB. If you want 1 GB, they'll open up 1 GB. Dedicated, you're not going to share it. It's an open, unlimited tap for you. Yes. So you use that tap for 10 GB data and for a duration of time. You can say, I want 10 GB for 10 years. For benefit of the cost reduction in costs, it's nice to have a long duration of time. So once they open up that tap of data, the receiver now begins consuming it. That's how data is consumed or received. Yes.
Do we all as African countries buy it somewhere, or there's an African country that produces its own data?
There are multiple points of connection for Africa where they buy data. But for us being close to the Indian Ocean, we buy it from the undersea cable that is at the Indian Ocean. Okay. But then there are other cables in South Africa, in West Africa. So there are multiple cables that are running all over the world that Africa buys from. Okay. Well, we'll just take a break and return after this very short break and continue the conversation. With me in studios is Mr. Hatwib, Dr. Hatwib Mogasha, the Executive Director of NITA, the National IT Uganda. With me in studios, talk about the e-governments and how NITA has enabled its uptake in this country. We'll take a break and return. That was an interesting discussion.
This is Good Morning Uganda Extra. Uganda, today is a great day to work towards your dreams. Dial *185 *7# and select savings to save as low as 500 Ugandan shillings on regular savings or 250,000 Ugandan shillings for fixed deposits. Airtel Money Super Saver is powered by KCB Bank Uganda. Airtel Money, instant, secure, borderless. T's and C's apply.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field couldn't be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Echa COVID-19 kijja kugwa only if we stay at home, observe physical distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly, or get vaccinated now.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from the break. We continue the conversation on e-governments, and with me in studios is Dr. Hatwib Mogasa, the Executive Director of NITA Uganda, to talk about what NITA is doing and how it's helping this uptake. Again, here is where we are, Dr. Hatwib. We've had COVID-19. We've seen it challenging all of us. We didn't know this before. When we got into 2020, we didn't know what 2020 would look like, and subsequently the other years. Now, we are in the pandemic. I want to see where you've been and how digital solutions have helped us in this time of the pandemic. Now that we know we can have a disruption in our lives, in our setting, in our economies, in our social setting, what needs to be done, and how digital are we thinking to be able to manage any other pandemic should it come even after COVID-19?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Semakola. COVID is a double-edged sword in the IT initiatives or IT sector. It came at a time when we are in the fourth industrial revolution, or we are creeping out of the fourth industrial revolution, but Uganda or Africa is still behind. We have not yet caught up with the developing countries. So it forced us to catch up or to move at a faster pace than what we were moving at. So I see it as a double-edged sword in that it has come with its bad, but also it has forced us to move fast in IT. For Uganda, and this is under the Ministry of ICT, with the Ministry of Health, we supported, or the National IT Authority supported the government of Uganda in coming up with different initiatives during this time. First, and this was with the education sector. First and foremost, we looked at the sectors that are most affected. Health was very affected. That was already being experienced. But other sectors like health, transport, trade, those were also affected. So we came up with different initiatives. In health, we worked with the Ministry of Education and UNICEF to develop and roll out e-learning platform. That is e-learning.education.go.ug. It's a platform, it's called Collabre. It's a platform that has education learning materials from pre-primary, primary, secondary, and even out of school material. It has it's pre-learning languages. It has multiple languages. I believe about 22 indigenous languages. It can be accessed online and offline. So if you are not fully connected, if you have a chance to download the material, you can take the material home, and then the students can learn from that material. Then in other sectors, like in finance or in the economy, we had a challenge of when we went in lockdown, the economy or the citizens were affected.
Sure.
So under the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, they came to us to see what we can do to support them in disbursing refund, or disbursing relief funds to the affected or vulnerable people. So NITA developed a system, the COVID refund management system, from scratch. We first reviewed all government databases to see what government agency or government database can enable Office of the Prime Minister perform this duty, and most of them were not, the data was not clean enough. So option one was clean the data. Option two, build from scratch. We went with the second option, most risky, most So the higher the risk, the better the gains. And we took it up, and it was very successful. And other sectors also, we have supported them in this time of lockdown. Health, we have had a couple of initiatives. We developed a system to track patients, a geofencing system with Ministry of Health and MTN. MTN supplied handsets, and these handsets were given to patients when they were found to be COVID positive.
COVID positive.
Yes. So it enabled Ministry of Health track their patients all the way to recovery.
Recovery.
Yes. And there are many other systems that we've developed for Ministry of Health during this time.
Okay. Other countries, of course, the other very developed countries have leveraged on IT to actually see how to manage the problems in here. When you move out of this country and go to places like very advanced economies, of course, like when you go to the UK, for example, they can be able to tell that Dr. Mogasa is actually coming to this country. He's living in Manchester on this plot, on this block, and stuff like that. And if you are supposed to keep in that hotel or that residence for maybe 10 days, they know you're supposed to be in here for 10 days. You don't have to move to any supermarket or anything. Should you move out, the moment you just move out, they can be able to actually tell that Mogasa is flouting our regulations here. He's supposed to be here for 10 days, and this is day 6. He's moving out to be able to track you and to actually know where it is. It's not something that can happen in Uganda tomorrow or yesterday. It's not something that can happen in an overnight. But how much are we doing to just even get there? Now, you talked about a very good initiative of the relief funds. One of the agitations was, I am vulnerable, but yet again, I can't be trusted. I have a phone, and this line is in the name of Hatwib. My name is Jagenda Semakula. My residence is not known. My job is not known, and quite a number of things. How are we thinking into that direction? Like you said, COVID came to us like a double-edged sword. How do we leverage on the positives of COVID, of streamlining our ways, and thank God for that?
Yes. Mr. Semakula, that's a very interesting discussion that we have been having with the government. How do we identify a citizen? And that's what we have been doing with NIRA. How do we know that I am Hatwib Mogasa, I am the ED, or I work at NITA.
You're a government employee.
I'm a government employee.
You work
I
at NITA.
live here.
You live here. This is your number.
Yes.
This is your passport. This is your driving permit.
Yes.
This is where you stay.
Yes. The interesting thing is all that information is available in government. All that information, to an extent, is available, but it is scattered. Every entity has its own database. Every entity is managing its own system. All that is available but not connected. It's disconnected. So we have developed a system, UG Hub. UG Hub is connecting all these government databases to identify a citizen. We have connected with NIRA. NIRA is a primary citizen registration database. So once we have that connection, then the others can plug in. We are talking with URSB to identify a business owners, URA taxpayers, and all the other government systems or heavy database-centric systems in government that hold this information. We are going to connect them to this UG Hub. This UG Hub now will integrate and identify to close to accurate, 100% accurate, a citizen that I am Hatwib, I live here. The lands department also, we're connecting them.
Sure.
Yes. So KCCA, all the other areas that data has to be collected are going to be integrated into this system. Once we get that, now we can know who a citizen is.
How difficult is that in terms of resources, for example? I'm not looking at the manpower or the systems themselves, because I know, yes, we have brains here that can develop the systems. You can look at them, study, but how difficult is it in terms of funding, for example? Why I'm asking this, because we have people who have, if you're called Hatwib Mogasa, period, that's very good. But we have people who are called Hatwib Mogasa somebody. Now on one document they have a different name, and now that's still a NIRA affair. You got the passport office, and now we actually apply for passports digitally. And should you have a problem with the passport office, then again send you back. Yet it would just be one thing to say, when you put in my number 0772, it actually brings every detail about me that the passport office can be able to look at that. If I go to the driving permit, it can be able to look at that. If it is insurance, it can be able to look at that detail if I have insurance. If it is the national ID, are we moving into that? Yes, but what's the cost of that? Because I think, do we have the priorities for actually just making that and achieving it?
Yes. The first thing that we did when we were integrating the systems is to standardize that data, or standardize the format of how the data will be collected. The key factor here is what is the primary identifier of a citizen, or identifier of an entity. And we took NIRA to be the primary identifier. So once you have your NIN, and most cases, and in almost all these systems, that we realize that the NIN is already captured in those systems. So once you get...
Because it's a unique identifier.
Exactly. So once we get that NIN, then the other formats, we don't need you to change your databases.
Okay.
All what we need is to connect to the NIN and then confirm that this is the individual that is registered in NIRA.
One other thing that baffles or just confuses us is talk about the IPPS, for example, the integrated the payroll payment systems, which helps us to clean and to fight ghost payments for servants in there. But yet again, when Mr. Mugasa is 59 years and maybe 11 months, he's reminded that you are clocking 60. You're clocking 60. And Mr. Mugasa knows that in November, they're back like clocking 60. And the moment you clock 60, the system reminds you to say your time to bow out has come. But the system does not automatically take Mr. Mugasa to pension.
Yes.
You know, then after 60, you struggle for another 10 years to just get to the pension list at the age of 70. But the system reminded you when you're supposed to bow out. The system could not actually throw you into the pension scheme.
Yes.
What happens with that? It just challenges us so much.
Yes, that's a disconnection that is within the systems. The systems are not talking together.
The systems are not talking.
Yes, but in NSSF, they have made it that once you apply for your pension benefit, you receive them in, I believe, in 3 or less than a week. Once you apply, but people are not applying, they're not being notified. So that information, that disconnect is what we are trying to breach. Once it is connected, you will be able to, you will be notified, and then the same notification is sent to NSSF. So you can choose, do you want to receive your benefits, your pension benefits, or not? So that integration is what is what's going to be the solution to such a problem.
On death and birth registrations, Uganda is also not very keen to this. What needs to be done? Because we need to know who is born in this country, but we also need to know who has actually died. Because if you are a government servant, you are on the IPPS scheme, you're getting money, but then you die, and maybe the system does not recognize that you've actually died. What needs to be done to ensure that we also step up birth, death registrations to be able to manage. Now, it still is an IT issue.
Yes. Death, maybe let me talk about death, because that is a more, that's where the biggest problem is. Birth, it's with the Ministry of Health. Yes, you can do it, and you can do it at another
can do it at another time.
But death, you have now information in government. You have probably a bank account, you have a mobile money account, you have different other accounts or data sources within government. And it is vulnerable for to be misused. It's a point that most corruption happens.
Orchestrated, yes.
Yes. So what we have done within this system is put in intelligence. If an activity is being performed on just only one source, if you are a citizen, definitely there's some actions, like either you are going to the hospital, there will be some activities from hospital data. But if we realize that there's now only one channel of activity that's maybe to your bank, withdraw money from your bank account. We'll question, why are you only withdrawing from one source, yet the other sources are not active? So with that integration, you'll be able to catch such malicious
Have you done
fraudulent
that?
activity. It is under development.
Under development.
Yes, we are testing. We did first user accepted tests in June, sorry. And in this month, we're doing the second user acceptance test. Once they pass, then we'll be able to go into production.
What prompted you to do that?
It's part of our mandate as the custodian of the National Data Bank Management Regulation. The regulations stipulate that the authority, NITA, shall implement a collaboration and interoperability system for government. That is, now that's what came out of that regulation.
Okay, and how easy is it working with the other MDAs? Because I think whatever they do,
Yes.
they need to fit in. So how easy is it to do that collaboration, the inter-agency with the other MDAs?
Some agencies, the maturity levels are different. Some agencies are advanced. Some don't have any, they only have like a basic system. Some don't have any IT systems on ground. So with that project, we have also put aside funds for development, either for the basic functions like developing an API as an application program interface, or we develop the whole system for that MDA to enable them integrate to this UG hub.
And you're helping them do that?
Yes, we are. It's a project that's ongoing. It's not a one-off project. The first phase, second phase will come with more MDAs connected, but it's a system that's going to be for government, and it will be continuous.
There's never enough funds for anything, but how is the funding? How is the adequacy of the funding from the government to the authority that will look to help us do all the things? Because the thinking is, once NITA helps us to do this connectivity, then of course it helps us save a lot of things, manage a lot of things, quicken a lot of stuff, and do a number of things. But where are we in terms of funding? Of course, there's not enough money.
Yes, true. Funding is a big challenge. With the authority, we have to maintain a data center, because all that information has to come to a single point of location. So we are constrained with funds. But also the development, we have changed the model of development. You know, the kind of system development in most of the system implementation is vendor locked. You have no flexibility to build onto more functions on that. But what we're moving to is first open up the systems so that we can have development in-house, local content development on the system that we already have. Secondly, we are encouraging local development, local solutions developed by Ugandans. And once we do that, the application is a property of the government of Uganda. There will be no licensing, the models, or all the other costs that are involved in this development will be eliminated.
Okay.
But,
okay, well, I think that's indeed very good. We running out of time, of course. Dr. Mugasa here. Finally, how is our trajectory in as far as IT is concerned? Are we moving on the right trajectory? And where do you see us 2020? Oh, what I talk about? 20 well in the next 5 years, because that's how we build. We by the end of actually the third national development plan, where do we see ourselves in as far as IT is concerned at the end of NDP3?
At the end of NDP3, we believe will be at par with the developing nations in terms of ICT.
Okay,
it's a good thing because we are not changing; we are starting from scratch, but also determining our destiny. So it's a good thing that we are starting from scratch and getting the best solutions on market.
Finally, how secure is our data? Because ordinarily, the conventional ways is that when you have your files in here, then you're sure they're here, even if you lost it there. But now when we digitalize everything, all the government is digitalized. How safe and secure is all this very vital information that nobody will come and tap into our system, clog it, and cause us issues?
I will be brief on that, because if we discuss security, we'll take a whole day. But security of the available data that we have as government is dependent on the individuals. That's the biggest, I would say this, the biggest point of failure and also biggest concern is the individual. Are they skilled? Do they have the right knowledge and expertise to manage this data? 1. 2, how do we maintain or manage the integrity of the individuals? Security is dependent on the weakest link, and the weakest link is an individual within that chain. Yes.
Okay. Finally, in just 1 minute before we move out to the studios, your final comment.
Yes, my final comment is we believe we are moving in the right direction.
Okay.
We have got support from the ministry, support from the leadership, and with the support, we believe we can achieve a lot in the time that we have. We are still a young nation in terms of digital services, but with this momentum that has come in with the new leadership, I believe Uganda will be at par with the developed, and we should be leading in 10 years from now, leading in development of ICT.
Well, I thank you so much, Dr. Twib Mogasa, the Executive Director of Anita Uganda. Thank you so much for being allowed to join us on Good Morning Uganda Extra today. And a very blessed week. Thank you so much. And we'll stop the conversation here and thanking Dr. Mogasa from Anita U. My name is Jagan Semakola Ziksoka, wishing you all the best. We'll turn tomorrow. For God and my country, stay blessed as we continue inspiring Uganda. Good morning.
Thank you too.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.